Hi, everyone. Welcome to this last in the series session with STS Capital, Unlocking Your Business Valuation. So what I want you to do, we have quite a few people who have signed up for this session. What I'd like you to do right now is in your chat, kind of tell us where you're calling in from and why are you attending this particular session from STS Capital Partners. And we'll just wait a few minutes and then I'll get the ball rolling.
Sounds good.
So let's see. Oh, we have folks calling in from Boston, Vero Beach. Hi, Robert. Good to see you. Vermont. Florence, I hope you didn't get flooded. I saw what happened up north. Mumbai, San Diego, Amsterdam. LA, boy, Tempe, Cambridge, Dallas, what a great group. Good. I'm so glad. The reports were terrible. Sherbrooke, that's fabulous. Looking forward to strategies of evaluation for deep tech startups. That's terrific. Atlanta, wow, that is great. So London, San Francisco, Greenwich, this is fabulous. Okay. What I'm going to do is start the ball rolling. And just to introduce myself, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Regina Ryan. I'm president of Harvard Alumni Entrepreneurs. I can't tell you how excited we are to have STS Capital as our partners. They have done a series that really has raised the bar in helping our community really think about the exit. Right? Oftentimes we're always thinking about the beginning, we're in early stage, we're at growth. We haven't really talked about what it means and what it takes and, you know, what are the resources you need to exit your company that you love dearly, right? So that's why this is such an exciting session. So I'm going to introduce my partner and fellow board member, Philip Guarino, who's going to be moderating this and who will take it from here. Philip, all yours.
Wonderful. Thank you, Regina, for the wonderful introduction. Just a quick request. If you are online and you can turn your cameras on, it makes for a much nicer interactive presentation. My name is Philip Guarino. Really delighted to welcome you all to the fourth and final part of our series with STS Capital. Really delighted here to be here with Mark Carmichael. Mark is the managing director of STS Capital, a managing director of STS Capital. He's going to provide us with some really valuable insights into how to approach valuations, considering factors such as financial performance, market trends, and industry outlook. And what we hope is that you'll gain a really clear understanding of your business's value and how to optimize it for maximum growth and profitability. So just some housekeeping. Mark will be presenting, but we will be sure to allow ample time for questions from the audience. So please feel free to add them into the general chat box. Please do not message Mark directly. He's going to be focused on his presentation. So without further ado, welcome, Mark, and turn the baton over to you.
Great. Thanks, Philip, and thanks, Regina, for the introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Good to be connected with you. I'm Mark Carmichael, as Philip said, originally from upstate New York, but now living in Amsterdam, or just outside of Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And I should add that you'll see Eric Maas is also one of the participants in this discussion, who's one of the directors, one of our senior directors that's been, he and I have been working together for almost going on 13 years, I guess now, which makes us one of the, with one other director, one of the longest serving kind of senior executive teams in M&A that certainly we've come across. Looking forward to the session, so let's get stuck into it. You know, this is taken from a series of conversations or talks we've given over the last few years on how to realize a maximum exit. And we're focusing on empowering you as business owners for an optimal exit in your own exit journey. And I hope that there are some observations that can be learned from my personal journey, because it is a cautionary tale. When I first sold my business in 1999, that nearly cost me everything. I was living in Australia. I had a data-driven data analytics marketing business. And when I was looking to sell, I didn't know what I was doing. And no matter where I looked, I couldn't find any trusted advice or counsel that had my best interests at stake. And they were all seemed to be driven by their own greed and self-interest. And so that cost me a lot. It was one of the darkest chapters in my life. And I say that quite literally. And it left an indelible impression upon me. And moving forward to today, I know it sounds maybe like a bit of a cliche, and I hope you'll see that it is not by the end of this conversation. But my mission really, my purpose, my professional purpose is really to work with business owners, whether they're clients or not. I really don't care. I want to share the knowledge and insights and the principles, hopefully impart them upon you that you need to know that are going to maximize your probability of an optimal exit. I was saying to Philip and Regina at the top of this call, we joined a few minutes early, there's no sales pitch, there's no self-promotion. There's one or two slides about who I am and who my company is, but today's not a sales pitch about us. It's just kind of in the spirit of that advice that I wish I had received years ago, but couldn't. And hopefully I can fill that gap and hopefully open your mind to the topic that is, so personal and meaningful to each of you. And I think, and I believe, I should say, I know that if this resonates with you and you digest it and apply it whenever your eventual exit is considered, it's going to benefit you. One of the things, and it will benefit you greatly. And one of the things that I often look to do when I'm speaking at various sessions, CEO events or YPO or otherwise worldwide, is to deliver stuff that can't really be found in a book, because otherwise you could just read this in a book. And a lot of the content that we talk about today is content that others don't talk about, other investment bankers or M&A advisors. By the way, just as a footnote, M&A advisor and investment banker in this context are synonymous. I don't like the term investment banker, so I prefer just to refer to myself as an M&A advisor. But if I use the two terms, you know that they mean effectively the same. And look, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've only ever worked in the businesses that I've created. And so whatever your considerations are, I know there was a comment about how do you define the valuation parameters for deep tech. It's a bit deep for this topic, but I will invite you, whoever that was that said that, to connect with me. I invite any of you to connect with me offline to go deeper on any specific topics that you might have. But as owners, as business owners, the uncertainty, that unventured territory that you're embarking upon eventually as it relates to your exit, all the uncertainties or reservations that you might have, I get it. Like, I've walked in your shoes, and I've exited my own businesses, some very successfully, and some, almost famously unsuccessfully 25 or 30 years ago. And so I understand what's at stake. And for the last 17 years, I've been helping entrepreneurs around the world, in just about every region you can imagine, and in just about every sector you can imagine, to optimize their exit. So, I've got a lot of experience with the issues that are going on in your head, and hopefully we'll be addressing them today. But there's gonna be a little bit of a I don't want to call it let's call it a paradigm shift in your thinking about how maximum valuations are truly achieved in today's world. Beyond the presentation, as I mentioned a moment ago, I'm happy to work with any of you. And again, no obligation, no cost, there's no sales pitch. I'm happy because I'm passionate about helping people in this regard. And as part of this event, happy to add value however we can. There's a lot of stuff to get into, so let's get stuck into it. Okay, so today's focus, we're limiting it to basically two general topics. First one is what's my business worth? That's the first question, or one of the very first questions that we receive when we first engage with a potential new client, is how do I know what my business is worth? And the takeaway is, and what we'll be talking about, is the only way to determine what your business is truly worth. And by worth, I mean what someone is really prepared, the maximum price valuation that they're prepared to pay for your business. The only way you can achieve that is through a global process that leads to the creation of a competitive bidding scenario or environment where you have multiple would-be bidders vying for your business. And again, we'll be talking about that in detail. The second element is that successful exits, no matter how you define that, and that, whether it be the price that you receive, the terms of the deal, finding the best new owner of the business going forward, whatever the variables might be. Those successful exits are driven by how effectively your business is marketed to a global marketplace of investors. And on top of that, how your business is actually sold, the actual art of selling, positioning, negotiating, and closing the deal, which is woefully absent in the world of M&A. And that's why I said, spoiler alert, most advisors, most investment bankers get this wrong. And again, to my point where we're trying to provide information you won't read about in books, these are things that most investment bankers, M&A advisors don't talk about. And we can hopefully touch on that if we have time today as to why. But you'll soon see that the difference in how your business, the process, the strategy that is developed, implemented, and executed on your behalf can vary significantly from M&A advisor to M&A advisor. And so if you go into this with your eyes open, knowing what constitutes an effective process, it's going to change your views of your exit. It's going to change your views of how you hire the right advisor, and it's going to significantly increase the probability of your success. A little bit about us. So STS Capital Partners, we're an international firm. We're in our 20th year this year, and we know that the success of an exit is fueled by an international process, which results in that competitive bidding environment that I talked about, that has multiple bidders who are competing for your business. At our core, in our DNA, we have a very entrepreneurial heart. Many of our managing directors are not only entrepreneurs themselves, but many of them are actually former clients whose businesses we sold and went through the process, and were so positively impacted by that process that they joined us after their business was sold. Where we differ is we have a very extensive capability to reach global investors. We can engage with the highest levels of any organization, and we have a network of contacts, of primary first-degree contacts that I don't believe is paralleled by many other organizations that we would compete with in the marketplace. We believe in the strength of marketing, positioning, and selling, and working with you as an entrepreneur to develop an entrepreneurial exit approach that's going to yield you the highest probability of a successful result. Very quickly, I won't go through all of this, but we're 33 or more managing directors globally, about 150 full-time people, and an extended network of STS advisors that I think it's up to 4,400 now. Representation worldwide, you can see some of our offices there. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but just so you have a sense for who and what we are and what we do. Again, I'm not going to go through all these bullet points, but just so you know that I'm more than someone just talking to you about how to sell your business. This is something that I'm quite passionate about. And I've written a book called The Intelligent Exit, The Business Owner's Guide to a Winning Strategy for Selling Your Company. That was motivated by that experience I went through 30 years ago when I was selling my first business, and it's written in a very conversational tone that is easy to understand and will really kind of open your eyes to the beginning to end exit process. And then the Exit Academy is an 11.5-hour video training program, which is just an extension of the book. And a couple other various bullet points down below. As I said, I don't want to waste a lot of time on this, but with regards to the book and the Exit Academy, I do want to offer that to those on the call. So stay tuned at the end. We're going to give you some contact details, and happy to send a complimentary copy of either to any of those on this call today. Just very quickly, there's a copy of the book. I've been fortunate enough to get some recognitions for best business book in the best business book category in different cities around the world. There's the Exit Academy screenshot and just some of the publications. So again, I only include those so you know that this is much more than a job for me. What I do, it really is my professional passion. Okay, optimizing you for your exit, priming you for success. So here's the deal. When you're looking to sell a business, most entrepreneurs, even if they sold businesses in the past, they probably never sold typically more than one or two. There's still a great deal of inexperience in selling a business. And for many of you, it is the most significant, meaningful event of your lifetime. So the stakes, they're high. It's not just about the money and the exit, but for yourself and your family, but also your fellow co-shareholders and their families and your employees, your suppliers, your customers, and the community in which you operate. Very often, a client will say to us, it's not just the price. I want to find the right new owner for my business that's going to take care of my baby and take care of my employees and my customers and my community. So there's a lot at stake, and we get that. One thing that often we come across is entrepreneurs think, I know everything about my business, and therefore it shouldn't be that difficult to sell my business. But that knowledge does not translate into how to optimally sell that business. And that's part of, I hope, why we're here today, to impart some insights that are going to help you going forward. And unfortunately, when you have insufficient knowledge or awareness of how the exit process is optimally executed, that beginning to end process, it leads to suboptimal strategies which mitigate the probability of a successful result. And so very often when we hear entrepreneurs recount their stories of their businesses that they sold, more often than not, and I say that quite literally, more often than not, it is, yeah, we sold our business, but, and there's something that comes up, which was, our advisor wasn't very robust in their marketing process. We didn't get the price that we wanted. The terms were quite onerous. I was getting paid out over 5 or 6 years. And so we want to eliminate that from your future. All right. And if you go into the process armed, equipped, empowered with the right knowledge, it suddenly opens up. You can see that landscape in front of you of how a optimal strategy, exit strategy, is developed, implemented, and executed. And that's going to significantly increase your probability of success. Even though, no business, I got ahead of myself here on this bullet point. No business is guaranteed to sell. Obviously, I don't think there's any surprises there, but knowing the rules, knowing how you do it, how the process is optimized before you embark upon that journey is going to profoundly increase your probability of success. So let's go on that mission of empowering you. We're going to share some real world insights. Eric may jump in during some of the Q&A, which I'll hopefully leave some time at the end for us to engage in, and let's see if we can add some value. Now, I always say, and you'll see it on my book if any of you receive it after this call and read it. I always say that it's important to know the rules before you get in the game. It's an Einstein quote ripoff. And he basically said, know the rules before you get in the game, and then play the game to the best of your ability. Play the exit game to the best of your ability, and then maximize your probability of success. And here's the thing. Knowing the rules, intuitively, you will understand them because they're the same principles that you apply to building your businesses and marketing, in building a rapport with investors and negotiation, and the tactics that lead you to a successful exit. You'll understand this because it's not anything that's going to be an alien concept to you. So the first objective, what's my business worth? And we said that the only way that you can determine what your business is truly worth, and again, I qualify that by saying by worth, I mean the maximum price that someone is prepared to pay you for your business, can only be achieved through a global process in a competitive bidding environment. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about the importance of marketing and how that feeds into objective number 1. Because the probability of achieving a maximum success in your exit is directly correlated with how well your company is marketed, how it's positioned, how it's sold, to whom it's targeted toward, and so forth. And most M&A advisors, investment bankers, whatever you want to call us, fall very short in this respect. So what's my business worth? There were supposed to be a series of builds here, but the slide got formatted or corrupted, so we'll just go through it all at once. there's a lot of content on the issue of what's my business worth. And I Googled it yesterday, and what's my business worth? And I think it came back with 1.4 or 1.5 billion results. So the first thing to know is that valuation is a science. Determining what your business is worth requires a systematic approach that all the business schools in the world will teach to their MBA students. But where a lot of people, business owners, fail to understand at the outset is that there's a strong element of subjectivity as well. What do I mean by that? Is that every buyer comes into a situation, M&A process, where they're looking at a company, your company, let's say, and they are guided by, among other things, their own strategy, their own circumstances, their own experiences, and so forth. And that can affect or impact how they value certain aspects of your business. And so if you have two different buyers who are both interested in your business, you may find very likely that they may offer two very different valuations for your business. So valuation is not an exact science. The valuation process has to allow for variations in various aspects of your business, because different buyers will ascribe different values to those components of your business. And so if you think about your distribution network and you're on the East Coast of the USA, let's say, a foreign investor may ascribe a very high value to that because they're not present on the East Coast of America. But if buyer B is already on the East Coast of America and they have an established distribution network, they're going to likely ascribe a lower value. And so you can begin to see where valuation can vary significantly amongst varying investors. And so if you look at things that affect, that influence valuation in terms of how a company is valued, and there's the obvious, like, your revenue and your growth projections, your historical EBITDA, your last 3 years of revenue and EBITDA, your forecast for the next 2 years, the nature of your client base. Is it a blue chip client base? If you have recurring revenue, if you're a technology company, for example. But then there's a less obvious, or the less tangible, which is, how good is your management team? And are they good people? As a buyer, am I going to get along well with these people? Am I going to work well with them? Is the staff tenure? Have you had a well-seasoned and mature management team? Are there positive reviews online for your business, assuming that it is the type of business that would have positive reviews or negative reviews? Have you won awards? Are there favorable case studies about your business, customer case studies, and so forth? And is there chemistry from me, the buyer, towards you, the seller, and your team? So price is subjective, right? We have the subjective nature of the valuations that varies, driven by our own perspectives, and we have the science part as well. So it is a subjective science. Valuation combines the science of valuation, business valuation, but allows for subjective judgments. And here's an interesting point that few people seem to talk about, but it almost consistently is the case in our sell side, with our sell side clients. The valuations you will receive will vary by a factor of 2x. So if your company's worth $50 million, you can be pretty sure that you're going to receive a $25 million offer. And typically that $25 million offer will come in at the beginning, because that's probably someone who's just thinking, I wonder if I can pick this company up on the cheap. And so you have a $25 million offer received. Now, if your expectations are $40 to $50 million and you've been working for months, and you take it to the marketplace and you go forward with all the fanfare and the energy invested into this process, and the first offer comes in and it's at 25 million, and you don't know about this 2x rule, you might fall off your chair and think, oh, what have I done? This is going to be a failed process. But again, when you're empowered, when you're equipped with the insights and the knowledge, when something like this happens, you say, okay, I knew that something like this might very well happen. I knew it might come in at the beginning of the process. So, okay, let's put that one behind us and focus on the other ones. So the final point here, and I've got to move my, okay, sorry, all of my camera views here are in front of this text. But your business will sell for exactly the maximum price that someone is prepared to pay for it. So that's a pretty profound statement when you hear about people saying, well, if I get a business valuation, or I had a business valuation, I spent $25,000 to get it, and it came back and said my business is worth 6 to 8 times. That's a valuable steer. It's worthwhile to know that data point, to know that roughly it's worth 6 to 8 times. But just as beauty is in the eye of the beholder, the value of your company is going to be realized in the eye of the bidder. And that's why it's so important to run an international process and bring multiple buyers to the table. So, how to obtain the best offer for your company. This is a run-on sentence, and I must find a shorter way of saying it, but the surest way to obtain the highest price for your business and the best overall deal structure from the party who represents the highest probability of successfully concluding a transaction in the shortest period of time possible, remembering that time is the killer of all deals, is via a global competitive process. There's no other way to optimally achieve this. And I've had academic debates and I've had commercial debates with others that tried to say, no, that's not true. And there is no counter to this, or viable counter that I have heard in 17 years. A competitive bidding environment allows your advisor to harness to leverage the competitive forces amongst would-be bidders to elicit the most attractive overall offers for your consideration. And having multiple bidders at the table and multiple bids on the table also enables you to make an informed decision as to which is the best overall offer for you. And what we find time and time again is it's not necessarily the highest price. It's a combination of the most attractive price, but the best deal structure, the best party that represents the best new owner of your business and who has the highest conviction of being able to successfully conclude a deal. And at the end of a process where it's been a global competitive bidding process, you're not going to be wondering if you got the best deal or not, because you will know that, my advisor identified the global universe of potential acquirers for my business. They ran this process. And we started with arbitrary number, 200 targets that we went to globally. We disqualified 185 of them because they weren't interested, but 15 were. And of those 15, we were able to elicit 10 offers, 10 letters of intent, LOIs, non-binding offers, basically. And from those 10, we then ran what was effectively a soft auction. And that soft auction resulted in the final 3 or 2, whatever best offers on the table. And at that point, you're empowered to make a very informed decision, knowing that this global process has been run and what the market has said has been summarized down to these final 2 or 3 offers. And now you can make an informed and confident decision. When you have a competitive bidding scenario, you have multiple buyers, gives you a lot of data points, which provides you a true indication of what the market is prepared to pay. Very often when we talk to those business owners who have recounted their stories of let's say suboptimal or even failed results, it was, we had one party come to the table and we did a deal with them. And these are my words summarizing what they said. How do I know if I got the best deal? How do I know if I got the best terms? Well, the short answer is, of course, you don't. But if you have multiple bidders at the table, you have the benefit of knowing precisely if you've, that the offer you've accepted is the best offer that the market was prepared to offer. There's, a lot less vulnerability in that scenario to, one party at the table offering a low bid or unfavorable deal terms. More bidders are likely to you increase the likelihood of them determining or finding the synergies that they value the most and are therefore prepared to pay for. And you're certainly more likely to encounter more favorable deal terms. And at the end, as I said, make an informed and confident decision. So that goes into the first point. The second one is then the importance of marketing. If we're going to create this competitive bidding scenario and we're going to run this global process, how exactly is it done? And this is a point I want it to resonate after this call. The overwhelming majority of M&A advisors, investment bankers out there are not very good marketers. And I'll take 30 seconds to explain why. Here's the journey of a typical investment bank, M&A advisor. They went to usually a top university. They got a degree. They got out of school. They did 4 or 5 years consulting at a top 4 firm. They went back to school, got their MBA, and then they got hired by an investment bank. The investment bank took them in, teaches them the rule book of this is how we sell businesses, and now they're 10 years into that career, and this is what they do. And by all accounts, internally, they do a good job. But here's the question. And as business owners, you'll appreciate this. When have they ever taken a chance in terms of building a business? When have they ever negotiated, that client that was ever that was so important to secure for your business? When have they ever put their financial life on the line in terms of signing away for the business? And the short answer is they typically have not. Now, so when it comes to marketing, they don't have the experience of having marketed, developed a marketing strategy and run a process like this. They don't have that experience. And so therefore, they don't talk about this because in some cases, they're not even really, I don't think they've ever had the awakening that they realize that this is absent from their process, but they don't talk about it because it's not something that they typically do. And if you know this, going into your own exit process, it's going to help you to ensure how to hire the right M&A advisor. And it's a simple question. Tell me in detail, how are you going to market my business? What's your specific strategy for negotiating to get me the best deal terms? How are you going to position my business to different profiles of investors? Let's say a private equity versus one of my friendly competitors. How do you position my business differently amongst those two groups? And see how they respond. If they give you a lot of pause, reservations, or generic responses, it might be an indication that it is kind of a robotic process that is just applied, and they kind of send out a lot of messages and just kind of hope for the best, which tends to be very often the norm in sell side or in exit processes. So here's a quick overview of a typical M&A process. They create the obligatory SIM, the confidential information memorandum. That's the main marketing document, and the teaser, which is kind of the no names, no details executive overview that they send out to investors initially. They have a rather unsophisticated approach, limited targeting, and they take I think passive is an appropriate way of describing it. Outreach process, they might have one contact. Very often the email address, and I know this from talking to other M&A advisors, is info@, it's not even a named email address. They send it out, they hope for people to respond back. There's not really a targeted follow-up. And as I said, it's a reactive approach. Someone says, yeah, I'm interested. They say, great, let's sign a confidentiality agreement. Or an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. We'll send you the information memorandum, and then let me hear what questions you have, and let's have some conversations about that. And once they get a few on the hook that are interested, they issue a process letter that says, okay, these are the dates, we want to have your offers by then. And it's a very passive approach. And so the takeaway from this is that, and what you need to be aware of is that most advisors will fall short in the ability to market and proactively promote your business and or show you any acumen insofar as negotiating with investors. Now, the other end of the spectrum is produce compelling marketing collateral, because you're really going to market this business aggressively, robustly to a global audience of potential buyers. Just doing a quick time check here. And so a professionally written, designed information memorandum with a captivating storyline that is professional in every respect, that gives the buyer, the potential buyer, enough information to intrigue them, but not so much information that it doesn't leave them with questions. You want them to come back and say, hey, it was a great document, but I've got 15 questions. Fantastic. That starts the dialogue now between your advisor and the buyer to start talking about your business. We recommend and strongly advocate using supplemental marketing documents. So once the SIM, let me tell you how it works in this industry. When your business is for sale, the SIM, this confidential information memorandum, gets sent out. And that is essentially the only marketing document that is sent. And so you might wait a week or 10 days to see what they have to say. And knowing that every M&A deal, like any transaction in the world, it's people dealing with people. We opt for a very different approach, or we recommend a very different approach, which is once they've received the SIM, 2 days later, we send them maybe a customer case study or a video if you want a vineyard, of maybe a drone video flying through your vineyard and showing the beautiful facilities, or a customer award that you've won. Now that not only enriches their understanding and their knowledge and hopefully their attraction towards your business, but it gives your advisor the right to follow up and have another conversation. So instead of waiting a week for them to review the SIM, I can send something 2 or 3 days later and say, hey, Bob, I just sent you that video. What did you think? Bob says, oh, this is great. And we have another conversation. Or I send him a customer case study. I send him an email and he rings me up. What am I doing here? I'm enriching their understanding of your business, hopefully building on the attraction towards your business. But I'm also, and perhaps equally or more important, is I'm building a dialogue. I'm building an integrity or a trust-based, integrity-based dialogue with Bob, hopefully, such that we get into a conversation now. And here's what happens. So now we started to get along very well, and he's asking me questions. And very common in the M&A process is that the seller's advisors, they don't ask enough of their own questions. We ask lots of questions. We say, Bob, why are you interested in my client's business? Now, about 85% of the time, there's no exact number, but it's about 85% of the time, if we've built a good rapport with Bob, Bob will say, well, look, I really like their distribution network. I like their intellectual property. I like their client base specifically because of A, B, and C reasons. And they'll tell us those synergies that they value at the top, those value drivers, right? So what they're telling me is if they get to a bidding scenario, a bidding situation, I know what's driving their valuation. Now, we, of course, know this information, and perhaps we don't talk about that again for 2 or 3 more weeks, but in 3 weeks' time, when that offer comes in, we're able to go back to that individual and say, hey, what about those synergies you told us about the distribution network and about the intellectual property and about the blue chip client base? And we can use those in negotiations with him and his team to ensure that we extract or we elicit at the end of the process the very best valuation that he and his company is prepared to offer you for your business. Going out to a global universe of investors is something that, in our industry, it doesn't happen well enough. I think it will get better now with the advancements in AI and machine learning and so forth. But we believe in quality and quality out. If you put a high quality outreach list, a target list of investors, and we invest over more than 100 man hours per client just in identifying who that global universe of strategic and financial buyers would be, because we know if we can do that and we can show when we contact them through our research exactly why our client's business is a potential interest to them, then it enables us. So in other words, there's no kind of copy and paste template email saying, dear Bob, fill in the blank. Our client has a generic statement. Are you interested? We go and say, dear Bob, we noticed on your 2023 corporate strategy document that you have a mandate to build out your East Coast distribution network. I'm making this up, obviously. For that reason, for that reason and the other 2 reasons maybe that we've identified, we think our client's business would be of interest to you. Now, Bob says, okay, these guys have taken time to research me, and they're not just sending me a template, but rather contact me on an informed basis. We generate more traction as a result, and we get a higher response rate as a result. But Bob might not always be very quick to respond to us because he's a busy guy. So we will contact him through email, through phone calls, through LinkedIn. If we have his mobile, once we've connected with him on WhatsApp. So he's communicating with us in various ways and seeing us. And what is that achieving? We're achieving greater top of mind presence, because Bob might be looking at 30 other opportunities this week or in the last fortnight. And so we want him to remember us We want him to remember you, our client's business that we're selling. And so all of these things individually are small, but when you add them up, it makes a world of difference. Also, we don't recommend one contact per target. We go for 2 or 3. We're doing one now where it's about 3.5 contacts per target. One client that we're selling a cybersecurity business. Because we know the more contacts, the higher the likelihood of us creating a meaningful dialogue with each. Rigorous follow-up. I'm just checking the time. I want to make sure I get through these slides. So I hope this is resonating. Philip, I don't know if you want me to pause for a second and take a question, or should I keep going? Whatever suits you.
Well, why don't you finish the presentation and then we'll get to the questions.
Okay. Okay. I'll try and get through. I hope this is resonating with everyone out there. If not, please tell me, so I know for the future. So rigorous follow-up, this again in an exit process, and please, we've known each other for 38 minutes, right? So what reason you have to believe me or listen to what I'm saying? I've been doing this for almost 18 years, okay, with a lot of businesses around the world. This is something that the overwhelming majority of advisors, not just this point here, but the whole marketing component that we're discussing, that are not very good at. And you need to find the advisors when you're selling your business that are good, that do understand and do appreciate this, so that you can be assured to get the highest probability of a successful result for yourselves. But rigorous follow-up, okay? That's why we use the multimodal communications that I mentioned with the LinkedIn and the email and the WhatsApp, et cetera. That's why we use multiple supplemental marketing documents, so that we're constantly communicating with each party. And what we want to do in the first instance is get a confidentiality or an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, signed, and so that the confidential information memorandum is shared with them. And then my outreach team at that point, their job is done, and they hand it over to a senior deal team, which is myself, Eric, one of our other directors, and the 3 of us initiate all contact with parties that have signed the NDA, and we manage those communications. And there's another point that's not discussed, is that when you talk to advisors, very often the managing director will come in and do the song and dance and get you to sign up, and then they won't tell this until after you've signed up. It'll get handed over to a very junior team, and we've seen this time and time again. So you want to make sure, one of the questions when you're qualifying an advisor is, who's going to be my deal team? Who is it going to be? You, the managing director who's sitting across from me, or is it going to be a team of juniors? And you want to get that in writing if you can. So we enrich the conversations. We drive the conversations forward with the supplemental documents and the communications, and then we create that multiple bidders that have an interest, and then we leverage those competitive forces amongst those buyers, so that we can maximize the valuation and deal structure for you, so that at the end of the day, you can make an informed decision as to which opportunity is the best for you. And at that point, we will have ensured that you've received the maximum valuation for your business as a result of everything we're discussing. So, and as you move forward, you select the right buyer. Obviously, with your advisor, you review and evaluate and choose the right buyer for your business. You advance them into exclusivity, which means typically it's limited to one party that goes into exclusivity, which means you forego all other communications. Legally, you're no longer allowed to communicate about the deal with any of those parties. And another data point: if you've run a competitive process, what happens in the M&A process when someone is buying your company? Very often, they will give you an offer to secure exclusivity, because now they're the only party communicating with you about your transaction. And then what they do is they start to chip away at the price. Oh, we didn't know about this. We didn't know about this. Et cetera. And they start to reduce the headline price, or perhaps to introduce more onerous deal terms or otherwise. If you're running a competitive process, and all those bidders know that it's a competitive process, they don't know who the other bidders are, obviously, but they know it's a competitive process. Then before you advance Bob into exclusivity, you say to him, Bob, we're prepared to advance you on the basis that your exclusivity period, which is basically for you to do your due diligence on my client's business, is confirmatory only. We've told you everything about our client's business. Unless we've left a smoking gun or you find a skeleton in the closet that we have not disclosed to you, we will not accept any deviation in the deal terms that have been submitted in your previous offer. If you do, we reserve the right to immediately terminate any further discussions with you and go to our next bidder. And what that does is it preserves the integrity in the process going forward. Very, very important point. And you want to make sure you've got a good advisor doing this. The advisor takes a central role. They coordinate the discussions. They handle all the data requests from the buyers. They ensure that when that party is chosen to go into exclusivity, that they are facilitating the due diligence process, where the buyer is now really doing the proverbial deep dive, very often with third-party due diligence providers. Some big four consulting firms will come in, they'll retain to do some analysis on your business to make sure that they know what they're buying, and the advisor will know how to drive it forward towards a successful closing. And the key takeaway here, your advisor's marketing strategy should be comprehensive. And it has to go, in my mind, it has to go beyond. Forget about STS Capital Partners. If we never speak again, your approach, your advisor's approach has to go well beyond the conventional approach that is used in the marketplace, because it is lackluster. And I know this because I know so many people in this business that are competitors, friendly competitors, and I know how they run their process. You need to make sure you find the one that is right and best for you if you want to maximize the probability of a successful exit. A couple of key summary points. I'll try and wrap up in the next few minutes to give us some time for Q&A. I'm not going to go through each of these, but creating that competitive bidding environment and engaging in a global audience and extensive research to develop that audience of strategic and financial buyers. And if someone comes in and says, hey, we're a specialist in your field, you make widgets, we are a widget specialist, we know all the buyers, they don't. There's no way they do. It's such a fast changing world. They might know the best buyers, but here's a problem with that. And this is where I know it is open to some argument, but the question is, should I get a sector specialist? So to the person who asked the question, should I get and for those who just joined, someone said, can I get some information on deep tech startups and valuing them? So someone might come to you and say, look, we're a deep tech specialist and you should use us because we know the 20 buyers. Well, we're a generalist. We can still get through to those same 20 buyers, but we'll probably get through to another 200 potential buyers. So where the specialist might say, we know the 20, we might go to 120 or 220. And here's the bigger point on the specialists. And if there's any specialists on the call, happy to engage offline on this further, as I've had many debate about this. When it comes down to negotiations, who do you think is going to benefit? Who are you going to benefit from negotiating on your behalf? The generalist or the specialist? Now, the specialist has the relationships. You might say, well, he's going to be very good at negotiating with these individuals. But the generalist, you might say, well, she doesn't, have the sector relationships. Let's turn it back the other way. The sector specialist, is he prepared to burn, let's say burn for want of a better term, those relationships by really pushing and getting the best value out of each of those interested investors with whom he wants to sell other companies to in the future? Is he prepared to put that relationship on the line on your behalf? Or is your generalist, is she more inclined to say, I may very well never sell this buyer or another company, and so I'm going to go for everything I can on behalf of my client? And what we have found is that there is a conflict of interest on the specialists when they get into negotiation, that they're able to negotiate and maximize that negotiation on your behalf, whereas the generalist will go for it. And they might be talking to each of those each of those sector specific investors, but they might have also identified 30 non-obvious parties that they've also brought to the table or into the process. So the best overall deal for you, the seller, is going to be achieved by a competitive bidding scenario. And no matter how big or small your business is, and we've had clients say, well, my business is, I think my business is worth, $5 or $10 million. There's not going to be an internet. There absolutely could very well be an international buyer for your business. Strong marketers, negotiators, and experienced legal team are cornerstones to making deals happen. In an M&A transaction, nearly everything is open to negotiation, price, the holdbacks, reps, and warranties. I'm not going to talk about what these are, but as you get into the process, if you're not familiar, you will become familiar with holdbacks and earnouts and so forth. And so you need an advisor that knows how to negotiate on your behalf. One other point, good lawyers make and break deals. And if you've got a lawyer that's you're loyal to for the last 10 years, but he doesn't have M&A, particularly cross-border international M&A experience, this is no time for misplaced loyalty. You need to get the right lawyer in your corner. And also to have, tax, make sure intellectual property is protected, wealth planning, et cetera, all vital. Some common mistakes. I'm going to go through these a little bit. I don't know if we make this available, Philip, or not, but
yes, we do. I'm concerned about we're running up against the hour. Is everyone, for those of you who had questions, if you're okay staying, staying a few minutes beyond?
Is it not until, sorry, maybe I may have had it wrong. I thought it was 1 hour and 15 for Q&A.
Yeah. It is. Some people have to drop off, but
Gotcha. Okay. Well, listen, so let me just go full circle on this. What's my business worth? That's where we started off. And you might hear something when someone says, hey, my business, I was told, is worth 6 to 8 times EBITDA. They're useful to get a steer, but they are just that. They're indications. The market is going to determine what they're prepared to pay for your business. And to do that most effectively, you need to run that international process we've been discussing about with the view to creating a competitive bidding environment. You need to market intelligently, comprehensively. You need to establish trust and integrity with all the buyers and qualify the buyers so you can find out where the value drivers are, so that when you get into negotiations, you know what their hot buttons are and you can be sure to drive and elicit the highest or the best deal from them. And if you know all of this, then when you go to eventually find your own advisor, it's going to help you to determine which advisor is best for you. Know the rules before you get in the game, that I started off with. If you understand that beginning to end or end-to-end exit process beforehand, it's going to empower you with the clarity, the confidence, the enthusiasm, the optimism to drive a process which is going to see you develop, implement, and execute the most effective strategy for you. And again, I mentioned at the top, if you connect with me on LinkedIn or if you hit F11, take a screenshot if you're on a laptop. By email, I'm happy to send you a PDF or Kindle version of my book, The Intelligent Exit. And my 11.5-hour video course has just been uploaded to Udemy. And I think I've got a free coupon that they're providing for me that I am happy to send to you. The only thing I would ask in return is that if you find it enriching and value added, please just leave a favorable review. But otherwise, no cost for these. Happy to send them as participants in this event. Thank you very much. It's 3 minutes before the hour. Over to you, Philip.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Sorry to be time police there, Mark. Fantastic information. So two folks had a couple of questions. Welcome back, Robert. Nice to see you again. You had 2 questions. So please.
Yeah, they're both based off the same point that you made, that there might be a 2x variability in your valuation, at the acquisition. The first is it fair to say that therefore you can strive, the advisor can strive for figuring out sort of what's the median, and that you might get 50% above or below that?
So yes, I think that's a good way of putting it, Robert. I think from our perspective, we will always look at the comps, the recent transactions in our clients' industry. Very often, obviously, with privately held companies, the terms of a transaction are not disclosed, but we subscribe to all the data, M&A databases. So we're able typically to find what we think is an indicative steer, 6 to 8x or 8 to 10, whatever I just said in that last slide. And then we would say to them, if we believe that the marketplace is prepared on average to, let's say, 6 to 8 times, to pick in an arbitrary range, we think that's a reasonable starting point. But through our process and through that competitive process, we believe that we're going to yield a significantly, exactly, Robert, a significantly higher.
50-50.
And so we're often cautious. We don't want to set false expectations. Then Robert thinks, well, 6 to 8, and then what, that means you're going to give me 12 times. So we're often, we're guarded in our optimism,
3 to
but
4.
we often, to get 50% above that range is not by any means an unusual event.
And then the other question is, so how big a factor is timing of the sale? I'm just wondering a generalization. So if you had done this same sale 6 months earlier or 6 months later than now, what percentage difference can that be?
Yeah.
Could that also be a 2x difference just based on timing, or like, what's your sense of that? Or do you even have data on that?
No, it's more qualitative than quantitative, because it is crystal ball. Because 6 months ago, we might have spoken to someone that didn't have an interest in our client's business, but today they do, because last month they had a strategic, imperative put down to the CEO from the board. But Eric, I'll let you speak on that, because I want you to just kind of chime in here briefly. I know I've wasted or taken up some of your time today, so.
No problem. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the timing, there are things you can do to generally say the market is, reasonably prepared for this type of opportunity, and to estimate what you think the demand is going to be. Ultimately, you can't time the market in terms of, making sure you hit the valuation, right at the peak, because all data is looking backwards anyway. And so, how much 6 months matters in terms of pricing and demand is, largely dependent on what idiosyncratic events happen during those 6 months. If it's a relatively normal, time in the world, then it probably doesn't matter too much, except for whatever each individual company might do. In this, kind of environment, it can make a big difference, but is it going to make a big positive or negative difference one way or the other? It's, kind of unpredictable in that respect.
So what you're saying is, I think we cannot generalize like you did about, at this moment, you might get a 2x difference in offers. We cannot generalize about timing that we might get a 2x or 3x or 1.5x difference in offers, just because it is so dependent on who those actual buyers are at that time.
That's true. And one thing with respect to the 2x difference, that's the type of thing that is usually within each process. So certainly there's a lot of variability in pricing when you come in the beginning of a process and then trying to estimate how buyers are going to look at valuation of a deal, right? But when we say that there's 2x the price difference in terms of offers we receive, that's on each individual deal, and often it might be the same type of buyer that's still doing the low offer on the same deals. So it's not necessarily that because of that 2x price difference, that's where the deal is going to end up, because we're going to be pushing obviously for the highest price possible. It's more just that in any market, whether things are generally good or bad, you're going to see a lot of variation in terms of how buyers look at the deal.
So at the end of the day, there's not a value in sort of thinking, darn, maybe we should wait another 6 months because it might be that much better. There's no way to generalize that. It's just like, here we are now, we're selling it now.
You can say that the market is very, very bad, which it's not right now in general. For some sectors, it might be tough. For some geographies, it might be tough. But you can kind of say that you shouldn't take this kind of company to market, or you can say this is a particularly good time because look at the graph, it's all going in one direction. But in general, you're not going to be able to really precisely time the market that way. And we don't recommend it. And people always say, well, if I hit my numbers next year, I'm going to be worth X more. And that always applies. And by that logic, you would never sell a company because, you would always be on that. That's not why you're having the discussion about selling your company, right?
Right. Thank you.
Right. So we have a few more questions here. David Grozoff, are you still connected?
Yes. I just wanted to know how long should one allow to market? Marketing campaign, time is money. The more, just wondering how to estimate that before you go into the process.
So is that, David, is that question about the sort of beginning to end time frame? Is that what you mean for the process? Okay, yeah, good question.
Sort of like it's very hard to estimate how long a job hunt takes.
Yeah, sure, understood. So
more complicated.
Look, I think in general, to run a process along the lines of what we're talking, you should be considered around 8 months from beginning to end, from the time you sort of hire your advisor until the day of closing. 8 months, I think, is a generally accurate indicative time frame. It can be shorter. It can be shorter. It would seldom be less than 6 months, because there's a lot that goes into due diligence and the negotiation of the share purchase agreement or the asset purchase agreement and the reps and warranties, indemnifications, all the legals that go into a deal. But to do a process, what we're talking along the lines of what we're talking about, we would normally envisage a time period, a realistic time period of 8 months.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Dan has a question. Dan Federman, are you connected, Dan?
Yes. In terms of your interest as a firm in a deal, what is the lowest potential exit price that would make the deal attractive for you to put all the time and effort into the transaction?
Yeah, good question again, Dan. Good questions from everyone so far. Thank you for those. Generally speaking, our firm, I think it still says it on our website, that we look at deals that are 100 million to $1 billion USD. The reality is that, particularly speaking for my team, we look at every deal on a case-by-case basis. And the first question is, can we deliver the value that Dan is looking for? Once we understand what Dan's looking to achieve, can we deliver that value? And if we believe that we can, we then secondly look at the economics and say, is there, speaking very openly, is there a sufficient fee that we can earn out of this that would justify our time and effort to do that, and opportunity cost to do this? And I'll get to your specific answer, I hope, in a second. But generally speaking, it requires as much time, effort, and resource to sell, for example, $100 million company as it does a $10 million company. In fact, arguably, you could say a $10 million company can even be more time consuming for various reasons. I won't waste time explaining here. But the reality is, from our perspective, we look first at the deal. Can we deliver the value? And then secondly, does it make sense for us economically? Deals for us, for my team, are typically, and this is not necessarily true for other managing directors at STS, but we look at deals from $25 million and up, I would say is a reasonable, but also very happy to engage with others that are smaller businesses. As I said, it wasn't a soundbite before. We do genuinely, specifically me, I'm quite passionate about helping and working with entrepreneurs. So even if it's a deal that we can't assist with in the exit, we're still happy to spend time and invest time on a professional goodwill to ensure that you're able to move forward with that exit intelligence or that exit knowledge that you need to ensure you maximize your own exit, even if we're not helping you sell it.
Great. Siddharth, are you still connected? Okay, you may have logged off. Maury,
Yes, I'm still connected here.
Oh, you are. Go ahead.
Yes.
Please.
Yeah. So my question was for people that are wanting to prepare their companies for sale in about 3 years. What are the top 3 things you suggest they should get right?
Okay, Eric, you want to take a stab at the first response?
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of top 3, I mean, I suppose I would think about it as, if I think about the importance of, how buyers are going to look at the acquisition of a business, it's going to be, first of all, particularly strategic buyers, but also private equity. Is there a solid strategy? Does this business compete well in the marketplace? Does it have a diversity of customers and suppliers? Is it well positioned, regarding the industry trends? Does it have, clear differentiation? Kind of the basic, is this a business on solid strategic footing? Which, when you systematically break those points down, you find a lot of very good businesses maybe are missing, one piece or another. And in a 3-year interval, you have enough time to, think about how you fill in certain gaps. So that would be one. Number 2, I would say, management. We see very often great businesses where, so much of the value is reliant upon a shareholder that might be paid out quite a bit of money on an exit. And that has a lot of implications in terms of the nature of certain interests, but also deal structure that might be less advantageous to the seller. And then the third would be the administrative items, having your corporate records in order, having your financials audited, before you're taking something to market, you have a quality of earnings, making sure that you've started to peel back, if there's certain transactions that are not an arm's length basis, or, could be somewhat questionable because it's just a business that one person has owned for so long or something like that, starting to professionalize and kind of institutionalize the business in preparation for a sale. So, kind of the strategic, the administrative, and then the other elements, just kind of lining it up. And we have certain ways that we've helped people in the past think through those types of things as they prepare for a sale that might even be a few years out.
Anything from you, Mark, on this?
Sorry, what was the question?
Anything from you, Mark? Would you like to add something?
No, I think Eric's nailed it. I think that's exactly what I would have said. Nothing to add.
Wonderful. Murray,
Thank
you
you.
think you had a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Mark. One thing I remember from Wayne Gretzky was you never skate to where the puck is now. You skate to where it will be in the future. And always in industries, we're seeing a lot of churn, especially in technology, in terms of what valuations will be. So I wanted to ask you what you see as the one or two really big trends we should keep in mind that will affect our ability to exit. And I'm seeing this on the valuation side with the venture capitalists, actually. So I was wondering if you're seeing it on the exit side as well, some of this kind of things that are going on.
So you want to know the one or two things that are kind of driving where the puck's going to be
That's
in the
correct,
future?
yes.
I mean, certainly AI and large language models and machine learning are having a profound impact on the world right now, as we know, and it's certainly changing the landscape for some of our current clients who we're in the market with right now, insofar as how investors are talking to us about our clients' business and what it might mean to them versus what they might have said even 6 months ago, because that's how fast the AI landscape has changed. But I think so that's a profound one. There's rarely a conversation where that an element or an aspect of that topic doesn't drive, even in terms of some of the more traditional industry clients that we have in, for example, say recruitment and staffing, is it's being viewed very differently now as a technology play, much more so than it was historically. But I'd like to think about that for a second. Eric, what have you got to add to that? I'm just trying to think of.
I would say, certainly if you compare it to like the VC, level of valuation, I think you see a lot less volatility than you're seeing at the earlier stage, valuation rounds and things like that, because VCs are maybe have a slightly less significant imperative to deploy capital immediately. In a lot of cases, they're helping support their investee companies, with cash flow and working capital advances as opposed to new investments. So they have more optionality in terms of being out of the business or out of acquiring new businesses or investing in new businesses. But also because most VCs, especially if you're looking at Series A or even seed, you're talking about they're looking at, is it a big market? Is it the right people? And do they have a good idea? And that concept can be swayed, so significantly based on these incremental, technological advancements. Whereas generally the things that people are looking at when we're selling businesses are, more meat and potatoes, even for tech companies, even on a strategic basis. It's how do they compete in the market? Who are their customers? Are their customers paying? Are they well differentiated? Are they profitable? And so those things have a lot longer lag when you think about technological advancements.
Very good, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, just wanted to thank you, Mark, and thank you, Eric, for a really fantastic presentation, really engaging discussion. If anyone else has any, we have 2 minutes for any last question. And if not, you have Mark's information. And we thank you for joining.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you, Philip and Regina, and thank you to everyone who took part in this discussion today. I hope it was of use to you. Please do reach out to us at any time for either the book or the video course, or just to have a conversation. Happy to pick this up offline, one-on-one with any of you. And as I said before, if anyone joined late, you know, our view is always to add value. There's no sales pitch, there's no expectation or obligation or anything like that. We're happy to talk. We're happy to support you on your entrepreneurial journey towards exit, however we can. Whether you're a client or not, we're happy to add value wherever we can. So I really do encourage any of you to reach out and let's have a conversation. You're very welcome.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great day.